Hi, welcome to the MGL Podcast. This podcast is about our lives as missionaries of God's love.
So hello, welcome to the MGL Podcast. I'm Father Chris Eden.
I'm Fr Dave Callaghan.
And so today we want to talk about masculinity and a vision for masculinity. I think this is like a really important topic. So it's great just to have Father Dave, or Dave as I call him, with us today. And we've had a number of years in formation of our brothers like as MGLs and their training as for priests in their first couple of years. So yeah, tell us a bit about that, Dave.
We both were training young guys in the novitiate program. It was about 4 or 5 years we were together.
Yeah, we kind of overlapped that period, and you already had done a number of years already.
That's right. Yeah. And then you kind of took over and cleaned up my mess.
No.
But no, it was, for me personally, it was an amazing time. Like, we often had a lot of guys come through. Like, I think our biggest year group, we had like 17 guys we were training. And obviously, as a priest, as a celibate man, it was probably the closest you get to actually feeling like a genuine father, because you've got these young guys who, some have come out of work, some have come out of uni, some are kind of fresh out of home. They're embarking on this massive journey of consecrated life. Yeah. But we had guys from so many cultures as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think once you took into account local dialects and stuff, I think we had like 12 languages in the house or something. I found it such an amazing insight into the journey of manhood across the whole world.
True. Give a bit of an insight into it.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of good stuff in the Christian world these days around manhood. Like a lot of our resources in the Christian world, it comes out of the US. And it's great stuff, but people kind of say, well, it's only applicable to that culture. I found like that time training our guys was such an insight into how universal this stuff is. That as much as there are cultural differences and strengths and weaknesses,
for sure,
it's the same human heart, and the same battle that we face, which goes right back to scripture. It's how do we recognize how our manhood has been broken and damaged by sin? How do we encounter the grace of God to bring conversion into that? And how do we see a scriptural vision of where Christ is calling us to?
No, it was definitely interesting time. It's more than just teaching the guys, like we're living with them and observing and as you say, like there's just all the different cultures. And you just see the similar patterns and realities and similar wounds. Like one that we've talked about for years is just the father wound, and how that kind of gets played out in a guy's life. But even the mother wound, so like the father wound, where it can often be that absent father, or like it can be just an aggressive way of being a father, can cause wounds in a guy's, and it can be quite obvious. But then the mother wound is something that is very real, but not always obvious in one sense, like an over-attached mother, where you haven't let go of, when you're born, you cut the umbilical cord, but then there's that emotional umbilical cord that's got to be cut, and you kind of have to separate, and that can have a big impact on guys as well.
It's amazing, and we both went through our own journey through that as well. Like they always say that the best way to learn is to teach. I found myself every week teaching guys, thinking, I need to go on a retreat and reflect on this a bit longer myself.
Our own wounds,
You get in touch with stuff. But I suppose things have fascinated me on both sides. Like you've got these situations which we're seeing across the whole of our society, where young men are lost. We often talk about how in previous generations you had a sense of initiation, where the community of men would call you out of boyhood into manhood. We haven't got that.
Sure.
Or actually, sadly, we do, but it's in such a toxic way that the community of men is now the people you watch on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
Or on less edifying websites.
Yeah.
And that is so formative. Like it shapes who a man is and how they see themselves. And we're kind of in this dangerous stage now where people recognize that there is such a problem with manhood.
Yeah.
But you've now got these voices coming in, speaking into that, who are not actually helping.
Yeah.
Now, I've never seen any of, what's that guy, Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate, yeah. It's quite...
I've never watched any of his stuff, but I've heard other men talk about it. I'm just like, man, let's stay away from that. Like, that does not sound like a scriptural vision of manhood.
Yeah, he's kind of just like a confident man that kind of knows what he wants, and then this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it almost. That's the sort of...
Yeah, and you've got a lot of people coming out of this secular world where, you know, it's really this sort of self-help manual kind of stuff. You know, if you can just be really strong-willed, if you can do, 15 hours a day at the gym, and you can get what you want.
Yeah, you're successful and you kind of...
Yeah. It really focuses on that idea that a man is someone who gets what he wants.
Yeah.
But that's actually not that different from a boy.
That's true.
A boy gets what he wants. So a man is prepared to sacrifice for the sake of others.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what's missing in all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is where it's hard to try and cut through all that noise and create a really clear vision of what is a Christian man.
Yeah.
Because it's not the stereotypes. Like you've got the super macho guy on one side, you've got the very weak passive guy on the other side. Whereas we've got this image of a Christ who is extremely strong, but extremely self-controlled. He is not forcing his way through anything.
No.
But at the same time, he's assertive. Like he's not passive, like allowing himself to be a doormat. That requires massive interior transformation to get to that point. Like to get to that place where you're free from fear. Like you're not being controlled by that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's important. And like what you were saying before about the initiation, kind of like we've lost that. And I mean, not every society, but like particularly in the Western society. And I read a book years ago, like Adam's Return, Richard Rohr, and it was like he kind of just summarized like what are the lessons that they taught the guys, the young men, as the men take them out of in these like in tribes and different places around the world, and they still do that today. And like the lessons are kind of like really confronting, but like solid kind of stuff that you it's kind of like the opposite of what we're kind of taught in lots of ways. But it's basically like life is hard. It's not all about you. You're not that important. You're not in control, and you're going to die. That sort of stuff.
There's the good news. That doesn't sound like good news, but it is. Yeah.
But it's kind of like if you like, and it's like teaching them lessons through like actual experience of things, and like that. Otherwise, it's like if you don't realize life's hard, you're going to be, you're going to be complaining all the time and like struggling with any suffering. You're going to not be able to handle just the reality of life. And even in the Christian perspective of like God revealing himself in suffering, like you're just going to avoid suffering altogether. You're not going to have, you're just basically wanting to have comfort and anything that's going to be an easy option, whereas you're not going to grow into being a man that way. You're just going to remain as a boy, as you're saying. And so even though they sound really harsh, it's kind of like these lessons that we learn have like positive like impact. It helps you step into being a man, because if it's not all about you, then it's about other people. And so then I use my strength, or I use my whatever I've got for the good of somebody else, and that's how I actually grow as a man, rather than the other one you're saying before, like Andrew Tate or other people like that are kind of in a culture where it's like you basically just got to get ahead of everybody else, be strong and win the game basically. Whereas it's like Jesus is strong, and as you say, he's control, but he in a sense loses. He allows himself to lose to win. He lays it all down, and then he changes it from the inside. And
it's interesting how I suppose previous generations, the environment you were in would have taught you that stuff. Like you had a culture which taught you. But you were also in a culture where life was very fragile. Where you had to lay down your life for your family, otherwise they were going to die. We're in such a bizarre part of history, and we've got to recognize this. This is not normal. The fact that we can live until we're 90 without even trying, we have got every possible health and safety protection around us.
Yep.
But within that, I think there is something really damaging, because we never actually have to face the reality of who we are. Back when we were doing the novitiate program with the guys, I was always fascinated when we would take the guys out into the mountains.
Oh yes, I remember one time you were asking me, should we do this? And I was like, just give it a go.
But like we used to take the guys down to the snowy mountains to go camping at the beginning of the year. And going rafting down the Threadbow River, like it was only 100 meters, and then we'd get out and go and do it again. But the look of terror in the eyes of the guys, because I was like, this is outside our comfort zone. Even to go for a small bushwalk, and once again it's just like, but this is not safe. It just hit home for me about how that's so ingrained. Like there is so much fear gripping the hearts of men. As you know, I love being up in the mountains, and whenever I would tell guys stories of going off hiking by myself in winter,
everyone's around you, surrounding you, and you're like,
but like there would be this fascination, but also this terror.
All true.
They were just like, how could you do like that? That's not safe. But it does hit home for me about how much I think we've almost become imprisoned by cities. Like we've lost something which is actually natural in us. Of that. Like it's not risk taking for the sake of risk taking. I think that's where our society has gone now. Like there is something in
for the
hearts,
experience of excitement or something.
There's something deep within us which we're trying to reclaim, and we do it by driving at 100 k's an hour through the suburbs. Being reckless. Whereas actually there was something previously which was just essentially about being human. And we've lost that. And I think this is where we just don't know quite who we are anymore. We've lost a sense of that. And I think it's that question of how does this culture help men to step into that space? Because the biggest adventure is marriage and family. Like that is the biggest risk taking. To actually be vulnerable with a woman. Most men are never going to go there. Because they're afraid, if we're afraid of these big physical things because they might kill us. But then, how do you talk vulnerably with your teenage daughter? It's going to be much easier to just sit in front of the TV and play Call of Duty. We end up substituting the real dangerous adventures for virtual adventures. Whereas I think those experiences are actually meant to call something out of us. Where we realise, I can do that and I can survive. And it's actually training me for what's really important. Like hiking in the snow in winter is fun, but it's not that important. Hopefully it actually reveals something to you of who you are, so that you can then face the really important stuff of relationship and love.
And just listen to you, I've got heaps of things going on in my head. I'm like, I could say this, I could say that, and I was trying to listen to you. But just like the whole thing of like masculinity is like bestowed from other men. So like, and we're looking at, as you're saying, is naming these people and different kind of people that are influencing masculinity today, because we're looking for that, or young guys are looking for that. So just the importance of having some good men around you that are like, they've done the hard yards and they've kind of learned the lessons and they can pass that on. I think that's really important. And like a book that has really shaped me is Fathered by God, the John Eldridge stuff, which is really like classic now kind of stuff, but back in the day when it was just written, like it was, what we were reading those kinds of books. But what I loved about it was like that there's stages in life, and like a man, like a boy growing into masculinity, into a man, and the lessons that he needs to learn, and they kind of like they build on each other. And I've been thinking about this, just the importance, like the first stage of boyhood is basically you need to know from your father or an older man in your life that they love you basically, and that you're loved just for who you are. And then as you grow, it's kind of the lesson is to, like, your father basically saying to you, you've got what it takes to be a man. So he does some of those hard things or teaches you things, and just affirms you that you actually have the ability. And otherwise, you end up spending your life, if you don't know that, then you're just basically, as a man, trying to prove that you're loved by doing like what you do and what you have, but then also having this kind of imposter syndrome sort of thing, I don't have what it takes to be a man kind of thing. But yeah, what I found really good about this book is like God can father you through the men in your life, that you're not just like, oh, sucks to be me sort of thing. Like I've had a bad upbringing, but God can father you through the men in your life. So I suppose what I'm saying there is just like the importance of knowing who you are to be able to face the world, you know, to have like Jesus in himself. He knew who he was, he knew what he was about, and he was able to kind of he was able to lay down his life, like firstly, and not live for himself, but he knew who he was. Yeah, I think that's a really key.
No, definitely. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges for young guys is how do you find those role models? Because you look around the church and the men aren't there. Or if they are, they're very passive because they really haven't dealt with their stuff. It's very rare that you're going to come across that old guy who's actually gone through the journey and kind of become that sort of sage figure. Yeah. If you find a guy like that, you want to latch onto him. Yeah, for sure. It's just like, I'm catching up with you for coffee every 2 weeks. But I really encourage young guys to do that. There's such a generational gap or divide, you know, like I think young men don't feel like they're allowed to talk to old men. Or they don't feel like they'd know what to ask. Yeah,
awkward sort of. I don't feel like you don't have anything in common or something like that.
And the old guys feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's really important to try to find ways to cross over that, you know, because you're going to learn so much.
Yeah.
And at different stages, you know, like very often when I'm talking to young guys who are looking seriously at marriage, I'll say, look, like you've got to find someone who's been married for 30, 40 years and just invite yourself around for a meal. Like you can just learn a lot. You know, get them talking, go into the shed, you know, do something, because men don't talk face to face. You know, like you got to be talking side by side, you know, when you're doing something. But to actually just hear the stories and read between the lines of what's not said sometimes. You know, that there's often going to be a real story of regret of things that they wish they had done but hadn't done. Things they learnt late in life that you've now got an opportunity to learn early. But there's gold there. Like if you can go and really try and find guys like that, it's going to really help in the journey. Yeah.
I mean, even just as a priest, like how we kind of have contact with people on all sorts of different demographics and ages, and just some of the older men that are around the parishes and things, like just as you say, like the gold that they are. You know, they're just not some really gentle guys that don't sort of force their opinions on you, but if you're kind of open to listening, they've got just amazing stories and often, sadly, I guess at funerals when you're hearing, you know, someone's like a eulogy and you're just like, what an amazing person, do you know, like like I wish I got to know this person. So just kind of actually learning from those that have gone before us, because they've lived, you know, 90 years that know something.
That's right. And I think sadly a lot of the older guys don't feel like they've got anything to give, but even to kind of share about how they've gone through the journey of dealing with their own mess. Like I've often heard people make that comment that most men make terrible fathers, but they make great grandfathers. Or awesome grandfathers, I should say. because it takes the average guy at least 50 years to deal with his own anger and issues and insecurities, and you know, so by the time your kids have kids, you've actually resolved a lot of that stuff. And you now become this really loving, caring, compassionate guy. But to realise that at that point you've got something to share. You know, like to actually help other guys walk through that journey and lead them through.
100%.
Like we need that generation to step up.
And I think that often it's like lessons of their own weaknesses and failures, and like things go wrong and life just kind of falls apart, and then how they kind of make their way through that. Like those are just like amazing to hear that, rather than what we were saying before, where it's like, you know, what it is to be a man to be super successful and winning all the time. It's kind of like these guys have actually failed, and that's how they've actually become like have this gold from their sufferings and
that's it.
Their way through. So like
I don't feel inspired by guys who are always winning.
Yeah.
I
Because it's kind of like, I'm winning and you're not. And like,
well, it's a mask, you know. Like
I
remember years ago saying I'd come up with this theory that the more confident a man is, the more scared he actually is.
Yeah.
You know, because every man's got this deep insecurity, and we are so good at masking it. You know, all of our successes are just a fig leaf. You know, it's trying to hide over the fact that we're naked.
Yeah.
I would much rather talk to a guy who knows that he's screwed up and that he's messed. You know, like he's got a trail of damage behind him, but he's actually kind of reconciled with that, and he's been able to face the ugliness of who he is and deal with it. Like that, to me, that's more virtuous. You know?
Yeah. Rather than just having a mask.
Well, yeah, like, because so much of all of this stuff is about the veneer, you know, like, well, we've got the whole bro culture, you know, the whole gym culture, you know, like all of this is about creating an external identity.
Yeah.
Deep down, you're still a scared boy.
Yeah.
You know, and that scared boy is going to just act out in a number of different ways once life gets serious in a relationship.
Yeah.
To become someone who's actually vulnerable, that's the challenge. You know, and coming back to like the scriptural vision of manhood.
Yeah.
I think that's what you see. You know, like you see you see a number of characters in the Bible who they're not trying to be the best. You know, we were chatting this morning about St. Paul.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by Paul. You know, because I think our stereotype is of this amazing saint. You know, we have these statues of Paul wielding this giant sword. You know, but when he writes very personally, you know, particularly in his letters to the Corinthians, he's really vulnerable. He's like, I'm not that great a speaker. You know, like you guys know, I'm not good at public speaking. And that's not the way we think of Paul.
Yeah, true.
He talks about the fact that he probably had a physical deformity. You know, there was something in his body which was a real ailment to him. But, you know, there's this beautiful line, I think it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. There's all these divisions in the community. Everyone's competing about who's the best. And, you know, they're like, well, we're the better Christians because we had St. Peter as our discipler, and, you know, we had Apollos. And Paul comes in and says, well, that's great. You know, you guys are acting like kings, and I wish you were like kings. But as for me, I'm rubbish. You know, but like, I would rather identify myself with a crucified Christ. You know, like I'm not trying to create this veneer where I look strong and powerful.
Yeah.
I would rather be able to own my weakness and not be afraid of it. You know, and he kind of says, well, that's what real strength looks like. You know, that you can identify with the other people who are broken because you're not afraid of them. You're not ashamed of them. You know, you actually see something of yourself in them, and yet you've been healed, and so you've got something of how you can then heal them.
Yeah.
That's very rare. It's really rare, I think.
Yeah. Just hear that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everyone's trying to make themselves into something, present themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And like the very thing that we need, I mean, particularly as men, is like to like brotherhood and being open with each other, and like you can sort of feel that that's a sort of a sign of weakness if you're kind of vulnerable, but it's like way more challenging to like be open about your like your heart and your struggle. I think that's a real challenge for young men, like to actually just get some brothers around them. And
I think it's jump for all men.
Yeah.
You know, it's an interesting one because
it's true.
Like, how do you find yourself in a situation where that can be called out of you? You know, there's obviously a culture these days which says, you know, men should be able to cry. You know, you know, men should be vulnerable. Men should be weak. I remember hearing a guy sharing about how, you know, he was always hearing this, particularly from women, you know, like men just need to be able to develop a culture where they can be vulnerable. Yeah. He's like, I know that if I'm vulnerable, the first people who are going to turn their back on me are my wife and my daughter, because they're going to be ashamed. Yeah. But it was such a raw comment. Like, he was like, you know, culture's calling us to be like this, but at the same time, it doesn't know how to deal with a man who's vulnerable.
Yeah. Because it's seen as like a weakness.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's like, what do you do with that? You know, and you kind of get the impression this guy was saying, like if a woman's crying, you know how to deal with that. But if a man's crying, everyone just backs away because they're just like, this is a foreign object. We don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult thing to say to men, you've got to be vulnerable. The natural thing is that a man's going to find a woman to be vulnerable to.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable to other men, it's threatening. It's threatening because you know that your weakness can be used against you.
Yeah.
And that goes for men and for women. You know, like if you're weak in the face of women, you know it's probably going to come back at you as well.
Yeah.
So this is where you've got to find brothers that you can trust.
Yeah, for sure.
And even then, it's hard.
Yeah.
But there's something of that radical honesty where it can be called out of you. Yeah.
100%.
I was listening to a thing recently about Alcoholics Anonymous, and AA always fascinates me because there's a level of radical honesty that comes from knowing their brokenness. You know, they won't begin working with someone until they've hit absolute rock bottom. So life itself has stripped the veneer away from you. You're no longer pretending. Like if you come in and say, I'm just looking for some tips on how to get through, they'll say, go away.
Yeah.
You know, come back when you're divorced and you're in prison and you're bankrupt. Once everything's stripped from you, then you'll be able to be honest. But the level of honesty is huge.
Yeah.
You know, that they'll call out stuff that everyone else will tiptoe around.
Yeah.
How does the church rediscover that? You know, like we are meant to be people who are in need of a savior. You know, we're meant to be people who know that we're sinners, that we're broken. But even then, we're still pretending. You know, we're still holding up this mask of, I'm okay, I just need a few, you know, tips and helps and a bit of grace and I'll get through.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, to become a really strong man, you've got to get to that point where you know that you're an absolute basket case. You know, to put it nicely.
Yeah.
But, you know, that at that point, you can actually open up. Yeah. And particularly if you're around other men who are in the same place. Yeah. I went to God and just said, Father, just heal me. Like I need you to be my father. I need you to father me and train me to fill in the gaps of what my own dad couldn't do.
Yeah.
And suddenly all this stuff started to open up. You know, that there were areas of wounding that I wasn't even aware of, that I became aware of, and they started to get healed. But also areas of, you know, things that weren't settled within me, you know, insecurities, you know, fears, things around my identity, which I just started to feel so much more at peace with who I was. Feeling like that war within myself had ended. And I probably wasn't even aware that battle was going on previously because it was just the normal background noise of life.
Yeah.
But I always say to guys these days, just to make it really simple and just say, Father, heal me. You know, Father, love me. And really make that your focus, like for a couple of years, you know, particularly in your young years before you get married.
Yeah.
Allow God to really take you on that journey.
Yeah. And I found, and as I prayed that kind of a prayer, like getting around men, like God fathering you through actual humans coming around you and encouraging you, but also challenging you and kind of sharing those lessons. I found that like a really, like, you know, for me as priests, like having some of the older priests kind of mentoring us, or some of the guys that we're surrounded by in the community that we're in, lay people like that are just solid guys, and just getting around them and learning from them has been a huge part of that healing for me as well, like God fathering me through other men around. So
I think my experience was that the two are very linked. That when I started actively praying for God the Father to encounter me and heal me, I think that was when I started to notice the men around me.
Yeah.
And it was almost as though God was showing me things I needed to see at the right time. You know, like I remember a particular dad in the community, just this interaction between him and his son, which I'd probably seen things like this 1,000 times and never noticed it. But suddenly I saw it. I'm just like, oh man, like it hit something in me.
Yeah.
Of the fatherhood that I wish I'd had.
Yeah.
But it was almost like God was saying, okay, I'm showing you where I want to heal you. You know, like you've been asking for this, and I'm now going to use these conversations. I'm going to use these encounters to reveal what you've never known and show you what I want to bring.
Yeah, cool. Well, that probably brings us to the end of our podcast. I guess there's a couple of points there that, just like to pray, asking God to father you, and then with that same kind of prayer, like getting around some of the older men in our lives and allowing them to father us, then allowing God to father us through them. So, I mean, this is such a huge topic, and I think a really important one for our time. Yeah. All right, so that's the end of our podcast for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the MGL Podcast. Tune in every Monday and Wednesday for new episodes. Connect with us on Instagram at MGL_priests and brothers. And that's all from us. Until next time.